Thank you, Ray, for doing that. Ray was our backup this morning for the reading, and he came up here and did a good job. It's the first Sunday that's cool. Don't tell me it already affected our church. We're it's going to get colder, right? I think. I forget. And then being cold is relative. So today I want to continue what we were talking about last week. We talked about worship God and worshiping God, and we went into the Psalms, and so we talked about praise and praising God, and we talked about what we do before we go to praise God, and so I want to continue with that this morning. And so I'm going to jump in. Normally I kind of sort of break a rule this morning for myself about words, to define words and all that. Typically I don't use the original language, but I'm going to do that in the sermon this morning. Kind of reminds me when I first started preaching. The first word that I'm going to use, because this is Jesus, I want to go back, not only just to talk about what Paul talked about in worship, but what did Jesus teach about worship? What was he trying to tell us? What was he trying to communicate to us about worship? What did he say? Because that's what we want to know, right? Because a lot of times we look at the letters about discipleship, but Jesus is the one who taught us on how to disciple. And so I'm just going to go back a little bit to Jesus taught. This is a word. This word means to fall down. That's the original in the Greek, proskuneo. And so let me just set up the context here. Jesus has been baptized, goes out to the wilderness, to the desert, and so he's being tried and tested by Satan, and Satan's going to even quote scripture, and then he's going to go to him and say, hey, look, I know, because he knew scripture like Daniel 7, that one will come, right? The Son of Man would come, and the dominion will be given to him, and he knew all that. And he says, you can skip all that, and I can give you dominion. I can give you power. All you got to do is do something right here before me. And this is what Satan tells Jesus. All these things I will give you if you fall down and worship me. That's the word that he uses there, by the way. The falling down to worship. And Jesus is really interesting the way he replies. He's going to use a couple of words to do it. But he's going to say, what I want my people to do is to be completely devoted to God. And here's his reply. And Jesus answered and said to him, it is written, you shall worship, and there's the other part, the falling down. If you want to talk about actual worship that Jesus was talking about, what the disciples are talking about, by the way, in the temple, there's no chairs. So people just stood up. And when they really wanted to they were really moved, and they worshiped God, they fell down on their face. That's the word for worship that Jesus is talking about. Yeah, you worship him like that. And then he goes on to say, you shall worship the Lord your God and serve him only. And by the way, a good translation here will read like this. You shall worship the Lord your God and worship him only. It's just two different words that are used for worship. One is used for service. I'll give you an example. The other words I pray if you're a note taker. And this is used in Hebrews 9:6 also. Now, then, this is about the tabernacles. Now, when these things have been prepared, the priests, right, the people that work in the tabernacle, continually are entering the outer tabernacle, performing, this is the same word used there, the divine worship or the divine service. I just want you to see the difference here. Here's the reason why. I've seen people write books and they'll pull out just this one passage and they go, you see, what we do every day continually, that's worship. So there's no need to come to the place to worship. And yes, there is. Jesus uses both. He says, in my kingdom, my people, we will do this. We'll do the bowing down when we get together, and we will continually do the service in and out of the place of worship. He says, my kingdom will have those that worship continually. But here's a question for us. Is my walk, my service, or worship look something that can come in and out of the door of the place where we bend the knee, where we bow down? And by the way, I'm not arguing anything like, we're not doing it correctly, we just bow the head. No. It's just about, what's really inside of us. And Jesus will get to that in just a minute. But the stuff that I do out there, does it look like I'm a person that comes and bows the knee before God? The one that comes to worship. Paul puts it this way in his letter to the Romans. I urge you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies, and I will notice this, kind of use this Old Testament imagery about sacrifices. Your bodies a living and holy sacrifice acceptable to God, which is, here it is, your spiritual service of worship. That same worship, the second word that Jesus uses. What you do out there is worship to God. What we do on the daily basis. On the daily. Right? And how do we do this? How do you know we're doing it? Paul will go on to say, and do not be conformed to this world. You see that? And it goes on about being transformed by the renewing of your mind and so on. But the idea is that we stand up into the things that are happening here, that we're different out there, that we look like, sound like the people that come and worship God. And we know that it's tough. Paul says, I know that it's a sacrifice. I know that when you forgive people that don't deserve it, it's a sacrifice. I know when you love people the way they don't deserve it, that's a sacrifice. I know that you're out there and you're doing stuff that really takes a lot, but I want you to know that it goes up to heaven like this pleasing aroma, like a sacrifice that's burnt out. Paul says it does not go unnoticed. God sees all those things, and it's worship to Him. You know, when I was a kid, and you're not going to believe this, when I was a kid, I used to get in a lot of accidents. I was just this, hyper kid, and I got stitches here, stitches there, I got, everywhere. And I think the last set of stitches that I got, I was in the hospital, and I was, kind of a pro already, going to the emergency room, I kind of looking at what they're doing, checking it out this time. I'm not panicky or anything. So I'm looking at it, and the guy who's stitching me up, he's just kind of going along like that, just talking, humming, just relax. He had already cleaned everything out, and he just kind of does it real quickly, he does it real neatly. I go, wow, man, that's really good what you do. He goes, oh, it's what I do. And it's kind of like, no, don't be impressed. I do this all the time, right? And it's just one of those things. It's kind of like Jesus saying, yeah, my people do worship, but it's kind of the thing they do all the time. See, it's not a surprise when out there somebody says, oh, you're different. You're not like everybody else. And it's like, yeah, it's what I do all the time. I am a worshiper of God. And Jesus would say this too. It's got to be from the heart. Remember, in chapter 15 in Matthew, when they're trying to get to Him through His disciples, and they're observing certain rituals on how to wash before they eat and all that good stuff, He's going to bring up worship. This is the second time He brings up worship, and He says this people, and He quotes Isaiah, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far away from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching His doctrines and precepts. The idea is, you can have, and this, it's not that the people in the time of Isaiah had the wrong rituals, the wrong place of worship, or the wrong book. It's nothing like that. They had it all right. But their commitment, their daily stuff, did not match what they were doing when they came to worship. And Jesus would say, by the way, the heart is more important than the stuff out here. Because we can get fixated with what we're doing, right? Make sure we do it just right. Jesus would say, I want you to know something. Because that's His audience right there. Right in front of those people that are Jewish leaders saying, you're getting all the mechanics wrong. And He says, wait a second. And He says, God in the flesh is coming down. Says, and He comes down, He's walking among us, and He says, let me tell you folks what we expect up there. We want you to have your heart in this. We want you to really be passionate about what you're doing. That your heart comes along when you're worshiping me. And that's pretty important. It's more than a correct process. Because we can get all caught up in my process. And Jesus said, let me tell you something what we're looking at. We're looking at the heart. That's what we're looking at. I think about this story that I heard a while back. There's this guy who's on a date. And he goes and picks up chicken with his date. They get these boxes of chicken, and they go out, they're going to have their picnic, and they start opening their bags, and there's no chicken. They look at it, and one of the bags, there's a lot of money. All the cash for the day, so they had cash down, they accidentally put it inside the bag. So he and his date thought, we can't keep this. So they drive all the way back to that chicken place. They give it to the person right behind the counter. They call the manager comes out. He's really impressed. He goes, oh my goodness. No one does that. That's pretty special. He goes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call the newspaper, and then I'm going to have them write an article, because you deserve to be called a hero. He goes, no. This guy goes, I'm no hero. In fact, I don't want the attention. He said, you see, I'm on a date. We're both married, just not to each other. Right? It kind of just does away with everything, doesn't it? And that's what Jesus was talking about. It can look really sharp and smooth and glossy and really cool, really nice. All the mechanic out there. He says, but up there, we're looking right down the center to the heart is where we're looking. Is the foundation there? Is it there? And then he says, also it's spiritual. I want you to know this is a spiritual act. It is from the heart, and it is a spiritual process. I want you to know. So when he's saying that, he's not saying, oh, you better have all the stuff that we can see, right? Mechanically. It's not where he's going with that, church. It's trying to see that real quickly. And where I'm going with this is, in fact, he's going to the Samaritan woman, and they have been fighting for generations about who's got the right worship. He's saying, over here in Mount Garrison, we have our temple, we have our priest, we have the first 5 books of the Bible, and you guys say you have the right worship over there in Jerusalem. Who's right? And Jesus says, let me tell you, we're right, but pretty soon, none of that. Plates or mechanics are going to matter. Do you want to tell him? Let me tell you what really matters. And he gets to the heart of it. He says, but an hour is coming, and now is, when the true, and the word means genuine, when the genuine worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and truth. And by the way, we can't read mechanics into the word truth there. He's talking about being genuine worshipers. Do you bring the heart to the worship? Do you see where he's going with this? We're looking at more than just, did we get all this stuff right, but what's inside of you when you come? And then he goes on to say this, for such people, the Father seeks to be worshipers. It's not that just people are seeking God. No. God's pursuing these people. And God shows them, that's kind of a wink in the gospel. It's kind of wink. God is here saying this. God is pursuing a person right there in that context, and he's saying these words. God is spirit, and those who worship have the option. No. This is not about options. For God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. And church, when we talk about teachings about the church, when we talk about teachings about worship, it must have spirit and heart. Do we see that? It's not that the disciples are trying to write something to us to give us some insight on Jesus. God in the flesh saying, here's what we want up in heaven. This is what we want. This is a must. Not the great option, but what we're really looking for. I just want you to see that the plates and mechanics are not God. They're not God. They point to God. You heard this, somebody say this before. The finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. Meaning, right? The things that we do here point to God. They're not God. They're not God. They're pointing. And by the way, he's talking to someone who's not welcome in worship. If you remember the story, he has to kind of dig into what's really in her heart. He says, yeah, you've had 5 husbands, and the husband you have right now is not your. Remember all that stuff? And sometimes we think, well, people better get it right before they get in here, and then they can worship God. There's a place of worship at the time, and God doesn't go to that place. He goes to the person who is not welcome in the worship. That is not small church. When he goes and talks about church and worship, God's making a point here. He's saying, I am pursuing people with the right heart. And this lady had it. Did she have her life together? No. But she's going to become such a great evangelist. She's going to go to the town and say, come and see. You've got to come and see this guy. He knows all about me. And he still loves me. And wants me to be a worshiper. I think that's pretty huge.
Amen.
That's the message that we point to. What we do here points to that Spirit and that God. It is so big, so powerful, and beautiful, and loving, and graceful. And what a great message for you and me. It is. And no matter what you've done in your past, and no matter if you've been serving God forever, and this week was the worst week of your life, that doesn't matter. He's pursuing you. He's after you. He's after you. I'm kind of just put those up on the screen. God showed up to a messed up, welcoming heart. That's what he did. And that's who we are here. We're gathered sinners. Paul in Romans 3 says, we all fall short of the glory of God. Last week I quoted a psalm saying, oh, if you kept track. Because we all fall short. This is who we are. He just wants us to be genuine, not perfect. We're not a gathering of perfect people. Church, that's a fallacy. It will never be true. It wasn't true then, and it is not true now. The people who pretended to be perfect, he walks up there and goes, no, wrong. And he couldn't disciple those people. They knew so much scripture. They knew so much ritual. They knew everything about the Bible. And he goes, no, thank you. Because the heart is far away from me. I think that's pretty powerful. A while back, there's some movies my kids and I used to watch over and over. And one of them that they really liked for the holidays is a Christmas movie called Trapped in Paradise. Trapped in Paradise. It was Nicolas Cage, and he and his brothers, they rob a bank. They go to this small little place called Paradise. And the people will give money, all their money, save it up for Christmas. And these guys knew all the info, so they go in there, and they rob the bank. But they get trapped there because they get snowed in. I don't know if somebody's seen the movie. It's got a great message because the town just loves them. And they kind of have a feeling who these guys are, right? They're especially one particular girl figures it out. But as they continue to be loved, they just changed to the point where they took the money, left it at the church steps. And then when the FBI comes in, the town knows already, but refused to give them in. They just didn't give them up. They didn't give them up. They just melted their lives because they accepted them that they were, and they were just this big community of love and grace that gradually just chopped that craziness in their hearts. And church, that's the community that Jesus saw. That this is how we take people apart, by just overwhelming them with love and grace and this spirit and this heart and this huge and this big. Paul himself will put it this way. I'm going to give you a little bit in 1 Corinthians when he says this. Therefore the whole church should assemble. He says, let me give you an example. If all of you came together, he writes them, like we're here right now, this morning. And everybody has to, give whatever, so you can tell an ungifted, an unbeliever enter. Well, then I say that you're crazy. They don't understand what you're saying. That's the idea. But if all prophets in a meeting, here's getting the message across is where he's going. If you get the message across, and an unbeliever, an ungifted person enters, he is convicted by whom? By all. Church. By all. Not the just the preacher, not just the teacher, not just the guiding the singing, no, by all. Right? This is what the church does. When it assembles, it is big and it's powerful, and you're conveying a message of what? The good news of Jesus Christ. That He came to die for all sinners, even to the ones that walk through that door. That is a huge message. That is what the assembly is trying to do. Not just the guy up in the front, not just the songs, not just whatever we think we like or should happen. But is it conveying the message to the unbeliever? Is it? And that's something that really is important to God, because He kept showing up to the unbelievers. To the ones no one wanted. That lady would never have been welcome, not only in her community, but especially not in the worship. God shows up to that. That church is huge. And listen, this is how God shows up. He goes on to say this. The secrets of His heart. We're talking about disclosing the heart this morning in class. Yes, there's a connection. That God wants us, all of us, to be disclosing this. So He will what? Fall on His face and worship. Again, that word, can you remember earlier? About the prostrate, fall in our face. If you want to go to the first century and discover what real worship was, how did He do it? How did He do that? Well, they fell on their face and they worshipped. Declaring, here it is. Here's the important part, church. Declaring that God is certainly among you. That the things we do point to that. They point to it. That any stranger, an ungifted, no knowledge, no gift, nothing. They walk in and what they feel and hear is here. They say, I can declare that God was in that place. Do you see that? Do you see that? That's big church. It's more than process. It's more than just, I gotta get this things right. No, it's about what's in the heart and what spirit this is done with. That when somebody shows up and they say, man, I felt that love. And I'm moved because I know no judgment resides there. Only grace, only love, only the power of God and the message of the gospel. And now I can pour out the secrets of my heart in that community. And that is big and it's huge. And that is who we are. We strive to be gathered sinners, striving to please God this way. Church, that's my message for this morning. I hope that you came, no matter how you came this morning, no matter what kind of heart, no matter what you've done or what you're carrying, how heavy it is, God is here.
Amen.
And you can declare your secrets here. We will pray with you, no judgment. We will love you. If you want to give your life to Christ for the first time, you are welcome to do that. Or if you want to turn your life back, you've done something that's just weighing heavily on you, it's a time to do it. I promise you, it's a time to do it. If you want to do it up here, you need to do it with me privately. So we want to welcome you to the front as we stand and sing.